If you ask me, Chad, as a pastor, do you have a favorite book in the Bible? You can ask me that if you want to, just digitally here. But if you were to ask me that, I would say, my answer changes from time to time. But right now, in my midlife, I've got to say that Ecclesiastes is my favorite. Did you know that some people, like my spouse, think that I am pessimistic? Can you believe that? Oh, I reinterpret that by saying, I'm not pessimistic, I am realistic. This way, I don't have to acknowledge the elements of truth in their perception. Many aspects of life are indeed positive, but life can also be challenging. For many individuals around the world, life is a daily struggle. The issues are many: the challenge of earning a livable wage, chronic pain, loss and grief, mental health crises, and just natural disasters. God, if you're keeping up with the news, the national news, I feel horrible for families in Texas who are trying to find the bodies of loved ones who are swept away by flash flooding. All of that stuff and stuff like it, it bothers me, and it always has. I grew up in a family that largely ignored the reality that there is suffering in our community and in our world. We never talked about it. I never learned how to discuss it or think about it, and therefore I never really learned how to cope with it or make sense of how bad life can be for people. Our focus theme this year at Bethlehem, which we've been reflecting on in our worship services, is flourishing. Not just living, not just surviving life, but actually flourishing in life, and specifically how the story of our faith can help us with that. And here's the thing for me. Maybe this is true of you too. But for me, I can't flourish without naming, witnessing, seeing, and acknowledging that so many people do not flourish in our world. I can't flourish if I ignore or dismiss human pain around me by simplifying it, by saying things like, oh, people suffer because they're not smart. They make bad decisions, or they choose not to take care of themselves. It's all very simple. It's their fault. That's why there's so much grief and loss and pain and suffering. And I suppose you can say that, you can think that, until something catastrophic happens to you, your loved ones, or your children, and then what? Where do you go from there? What voices exist in life that offer wisdom to help us navigate the suffering, hardship, and unfairness that we all witness in the world, and maybe even experience in our own lives? And this is why I've always liked the book of Ecclesiastes. It starts with a character named Koheleth. That's Hebrew for teacher. He shows up in the very first line and is said to be the author, but most people think he's actually a voice or persona created by an anonymous writer, and a writer that was someone deeply shaped by Israel's wisdom traditions, putting together a message for folks who really needed to hear how that wisdom could speak to real life. The book was written around 250 BCE, and Ecclesiastes gives us some honest reflections on the human search for meaning and what life is really like here on earth. It's not a story about God's mighty acts or a message from a prophet calling for justice, peace, or hope. It's not a prayer of lament or a song of praise either. Instead, Ecclesiastes is part of the Bible's wisdom literature, written from the perspective of a sharp and sometimes cranky, crotchety teacher who's not afraid to wrestle with life and death, God and love, sorrow and joy. If the only part of Ecclesiastes you've ever heard is the famous "for everything there is a time and a season" passage, I think it's worth taking a deeper look. Today, I want to share a short snippet from the book, and so that you can have a feel for it, and to show you why I believe its message still speaks just as powerfully to us in 2025 as it did to people way back in 250 BCE. A section from chapter 1 of Ecclesiastes, very first line. Vanity of vanities, says the teacher, vanity of vanities. All is vanity. What do people gain from all the toil at which they toil under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. There is nothing new under the sun. Do you know that tired feeling you sometimes get? Not all the time, but I would imagine sometimes. That anxious feeling that signals it's time to take a break from consuming news or doom scrolling TikTok, Facebook, Reddit, or other digital media because you can't take any more. I don't know the word. I think it's more of a sound. You can't take any more. Oh, right? I mean, do you know what I'm getting at? In Ecclesiastes, there's a word for that sound, for this feeling that I'm trying to describe. In English, we read it as vanity. Vanity of vanity, all is vanity. In Hebrew, it's Hevel. Literally breath, vapor, steam. It's a sense of fruitlessness. It's the sound of ugh. And this runs throughout the wisdom tradition. Right off the bat in chapter 1, life can seem Hevel. Life can be vanity. Life is just like, oh. Thank you. Thank you, wisdom tradition, for just naming that. And not trying to pretend that life is always great, or that if you don't feel happy, something, must be wrong with you. I need to hear that. Want to know what else is vanity? What else is from the teacher's point of view in Ecclesiastes? Power, wealth, acquisition, business, success. This comes from chapter 2. So I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. Whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure, for my heart found pleasure in all my toil, and this was my reward for my toil. Then I considered all that my hands had done, and the toil I had spent in doing it, and again, all was vanity, and a chasing after wind. And there was nothing to be gained under the sun. What else is vanity in Ecclesiastes? Injustice. Chapter 4, another snippet. Again, I saw all the oppressions that are practiced under the sun. Look, the tears of the oppressed with no one to comfort them. On the side of their oppressors there was power with no one to comfort them. And I thought the dead who have already died more fortunate than the living who are still alive. And after seeing all the Hevel, all the vanity, all the that is in life, what is one to do? Chapter 8 in Ecclesiastes is another snippet. So I commend enjoyment, for there is nothing better for people under the sun than to eat and drink and enjoy themselves, for this will go with them in their toil through their days of life that God gives them under the sun. When I applied my mind to know wisdom and to see the business that is done on earth, how one's eyes see sleep, neither day nor night, then I saw all the work of God, that no one can find out what is happening under the sun. However much they may toil in seeking, they will not find it out. Even though those who are wise claim to know, they cannot find it out. Man, he is a crotchety teacher, isn't he? But at least he's honest. The book of Ecclesiastes pushes back against the nonstop pressure to always be doing more and achieving the next big thing. Instead of urging us to keep trending up and accumulating things so that we can be happy, it reminds us that life moves in cycles. There are times for celebration and times for grief, moments for hard work and moments for rest. Chasing gain, it says, won't get us far in the end, especially since none of us can outrun our own mortality. But this honest view is not despairing. It's actually quite freeing. Instead of tying our value to how productive or successful we are or to our prestige, how other people think of us, the teacher invites us to enjoy the simple, everyday gifts of life. Sharing a meal, savoring a drink, taking pride in finding joy in our work. You cannot control much about life. The world does not owe you anything. Yet the message is not about giving up or slacking off. It's about living with intention, connected to God, connected to others, staying grounded and leaving space for joy to blossom when we rest in God's grace. That's where a deeper kind of peace and contentment starts to take root. Not by avoiding the reality of life's limits, but by living fully within them. So there will always be a feeling of, in the world, in your life. There will always be vanity. There will always be Hevel. There is injustice. There is suffering. But in the sharing of our gifts, in small acts of love, there's joy and peace. And this is the wisdom of the teacher in Ecclesiastes. Rooted in this Jewish wisdom tradition, Jesus experiments with it. He practices it by welcoming the least, the lost, the most vulnerable, lifting up the poor, touching the sick, making room for children, and all manner of others who find themselves outside societal norms. I find this refreshing and much needed because, let's be honest, there are a lot of people in our world who respond to the that they feel, the Hevel, the vanity of it all. They respond with anger, with fear, with violence, with road rage, with apathy, with escape, with blame. But Ecclesiastes invites another way. And Jesus takes it even further. Instead of denying the hard stuff or lashing out at it by lashing out at others, they invite us to look at it in the face and still say, I will love, I will rest, I will share, I will find joy in what I can. I will not let the brokenness of the world steal the goodness that's still possible today. So maybe that's the wisdom I need most right now. And maybe you do too. Not a guarantee that everything will be okay. Not a quick fix, but the kind of grounded, realistic hope that allows us to fully love, generously give, to grieve honestly, and to celebrate sincerely. That's what helps me flourish. Not by pretending everything is fine, but by trusting that even in a world full of Hevel, there is still grace to be found, still joy to be shared, and still beauty worth noticing. And that, my people, my friends, my Bethlehem, connections, and others, that is why Ecclesiastes is my favorite book in the Bible, at least it is for now. And this is the good news that we hear today as the story of our faith helps us to thrive. Thanks be to God for that. Amen. a way of going deeper into the message today and the biblical story and applying that more directly to your life where you find yourself today, a couple of reflection questions for you. So question number 1, what is the Hevel or vanity, or what is causing you to go, ugh, in your life right now? Where do you find joy amid all the vanity? Question number 2, take some time this week to read Ecclesiastes. It's a challenge for you. It's not very long. And when you do that, if you do that, do you appreciate the teacher or see him as a crotchety pessimist?